So first I'd like to begin by introducing some of the people at our schools that are here in place to give you a point of contact if you have any questions or need any resources. So we are fortunate to have a school resource officer and a parent involvement coordinator at each school. And those folks are wonderful points of contact. So in this slide we have hand in hand, Ms. Mary Dennis is our parent involvement coordinator, and Donnie Yancey, if you'd like to stand and wave, thank you very much. At Garrison Pilcher we have Ms. Misty Taylor and Donald Franklin. At Cross Creek Elementary, we have Ms. Latoya Williams and Mr. Jeff Brinson. And at Thomas County Middle School, we have Ms. Terry Dukes. All right. Thomas County Central High School, we have Ms. Allison Neesmith. And at Bishop Hall Charter School, we have Ms. Gwen Mitchell, parent coordinator, and Officer Banjos is doing his day because he also serves Renaissance Center. At this time, I'd like to introduce Ms. Erin Rayberg. She is our digital learning coordinator for the district, and she's going to share with you some of the measures we have in place.
Thank you, Dr. Degnan. Like you said, my name is Erin Rayberg, and I'm our Digital Learning Coordinator. So before Sergeant Hambrick comes up to talk to you about all the dangers on the internet, I want to talk to you about how we use the internet in our schools, but how we protect our kids while they are using the internet. We do have a lot of technology in our school system. We start with pre-K. They have iPads in every classroom. That goes up all the way through first grade. Starting in grades 2 all the way through grades 12, we have Chromebooks. In grades 2 through 8, those Chromebooks stay in the classroom, but at the high school and at Bishop Hall, the Chromebooks go home with the students. We also have other things like computer labs and iPads within all of the schools, so lots of technology is within the reach of the hands of your students at all times. We believe the internet is a powerful tool for learning. There are a lot of things that kids can do online that they cannot do without the use of the technology. They can collaborate, they can create, they can learn how to communicate. The technology can take them to parts of the world that they could never go to otherwise. So while we believe that technology is a very powerful tool, we also are very aware of dangers online. I don't know if you know it or not. In 2000, Congress passed CIPA, which is the Children's Internet Protection Act, and it requires that school systems take measures to protect students from either obscene or harmful material online. So as a school system, we have to have a technology plan that has measures in place to protect them, otherwise we wouldn't receive funding for the internet. Of course, we're always going to do the right thing and protect our students anyway, but school systems are required by law to protect students from dangers online. So how do we do that? We have a few systems in place. One is Palo Alto Network Filtering. This system monitors our network traffic. Joe Waterbury is our network administrator. He watches our network all day long, so it provides that service, but it also provides URL and web filtering while students are on the desktop computer. So it prevents them to getting to certain websites, certain types of content, and blocks any kind of inappropriate search they may do on a desktop computer. This system, you may not believe this, but we have some pretty smart students in our school system who have figured out ways that they maybe can get around filtering by using proxy sites. Well, Palo Alto actually blocks students from using the proxy sites as well. So we try to stop the sneakiness. We do stop it. We do. Because students in grades 2 through 12 are issued Chromebooks, Chromebooks operate on the Google Chrome operating system. Those students have Google accounts starting at grade 2. There are a lot of great things they can do with those Google accounts, but we know that we have to protect them while they're using them as well. So we have a program called Gaggle. What Gaggle does is it constantly monitors students' emails and things that are in their Google Drive for inappropriate content. If there is anything inappropriate in an email or a Google Drive, it alerts the school administrators about the content that is there. So Gaggle is one measure that we have in place. Another measure that we have in place with the Chromebooks is GoGuardian. This protects the students from accessing harmful content when they take those Chromebooks home. So it does internet filtering, keyword searches. It also monitors for self-harm type words that might be in searches or in Google Drive content as well. It alerts administration if students are doing any inappropriate searches, even if they're doing something that's borderline inappropriate. They search song lyrics. The song lyrics have inappropriate words. It's going to alert an administrator. It's a very robust system that we get alerts on. And then the other part of that is our teachers have something called GoGuardian Teacher, where they can actually monitor and watch the screens of the students in their classrooms to be sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing with those Chromebooks. So that is how we meet our SIPA obligation and protect students online while they're in the schools. We also have within our schools, this is my final slide, a curriculum for digital citizenship. It's with Common Sense Media. This is a free curriculum that is online, and if you as a parent have never been to the Common Sense Media website, you may want to check it out. I think it's just commonsensemedia.org. On this website, not only do they provide the digital citizenship curriculum, which really is not just about things like internet safety, it has stuff about cyberbullying, about how the media makes us feel about how we look, about copyright law. So it's anything to help our students become good digital citizens. But this website itself, outside of the curriculum, has a way for you to search anything that your kid may want to watch on TV, a website they visit often, YouTubers, movies, books, and it'll tell you a review of the appropriateness of the content for students at that age. So Common Sense Media is a great tool for you to check out as a parent, and we also employ that curriculum within our school system. If you ever have any questions about how we protect kids online within the system, you're welcome to email me, to call me here at the board office, 225-4380, or call Wes. He's just W. Davis at tcjackets.net. It's very easy to remember. At this time, I will turn the program over to Dr. Scott James.
Well, good evening and welcome. I know when you leave here tonight, you're going to know this was time well spent. Jesse Hambrick is an expert on many of the big issues that our communities are battling against. He's authored the book Prisoners of Meth. He's appeared on local and national television, including 5 episodes on A&E. Jesse Hambrick is presently a Master Sergeant with the Douglas County Sheriff's Office. He's assigned to the Sheriff's Community Outreach Program and Education Division. He's also the Public Information Officer for the Sheriff's Department. Master Sergeant Hambrick has 26 years of law enforcement experience. He currently supervises 14 school resource officers in 10 schools with over 25,000 students in those schools. Master Sergeant Hambrick is responsible for community outreach and awareness on gang activity, drug prevention and education, as well as social media issues that directly impact parents and kids. Tonight, he is here to share some information about what kids are doing in the digital world and what we can do to protect our children. He is a father, so he's not just a technical expert, but he's also practiced what he's going to be preaching tonight. I've had the opportunity to hear Master Sergeant Hambrick speak on several occasions, and I know you're going to leave here tonight being well informed, and I'm guessing that many of you will go home and immediately examine your child's or your grandchild's smartphone So please join me in giving a big Thomas County Schools welcome to Master Sergeant.
Thank you very much. Bring that down some. I hate hearing myself talk. I hope y'all don't. I usually have what we call the police voice. Y'all know what that is. And it usually works really well. So if it gets loud, please let me know. Or if it's not loud enough, let me know. And I will adjust to make that happen. I'll be moving around a little bit so I can see and present. As was stated, I have quite a good bit of experience teaching in the areas of what I would consider to be the most concern often in the community. Active shooters, one of those, as well as gangs, drugs, social media, the things that you heard. I speak all over the country, and I'm glad to be here in South Georgia. I actually do spend a good bit of time in South Georgia, and I'm not sure why that is. I'd love to hear an answer if you have that, but I don't mind coming, definitely. I've gotten where I can make a 4-hour drive and turn around and make a 4-hour drive back. Although tonight I do have Deputy Smith with me, Aaron Smith. He is my SRO at my daughter's high school, Alexander High School, where I also coach in all my spare time. I coach girls soccer, and I do have 4 daughters. The oldest is graduated and has given me my first grandson and fishing partner. He doesn't know it yet, but he doesn't have a choice. We're going to go fishing sooner or later, and I hope he enjoys it as much as I do. I have a 22-year-old that just graduated from LSU. She was ranked the #1 gymnast in the country last year. Dynamic young lady who worked her tail off to get where she's at. I'm very proud of her, and now she's kind of starting the adult world and deciding what she's going to do with that very expensive education. I have my 18-year-old, I have an 18-year-old tomorrow. She will be turning 18 tomorrow. This is a senior at Alexander High School where Aaron is the deputy there. And she is the true test of what all you'll see up there. She has pushed me in every possible direction to keep on top of this game, and I still don't know everything, but I'm hoping to relate to you what I do know. And then I have a 12-year-old who is a 7th grader who is going to be a really good gymnast as well, that is now learning to kind of push those envelopes, if you will. So if you have any questions, I'll be glad to stay after for a little bit afterwards and stay down here and pass out my number. I'd be glad to try to help you in any way that I can. Just remember that this technology and things change very rapidly, so what people are doing today may be different from tomorrow and the next day and the next day. I will say that I'm extremely impressed with the material that was put up beforehand. There are a lot of counties, even in the metro Atlanta area, that don't have some of what I just saw offered here. So it sounds like to me that there is an excellent job that's being done, and you should be very thankful, and you should thank the superintendent all the way down that apparently these people are involved with keeping kids safe, because that is the one thing, when you talk about gangs, that doesn't affect kids across the board in many ways. When you talk about drugs, it can, but it usually isn't that, a certain percentage. But every kid has digital opportunity. Every kid has the opportunity to make mistakes. And I realize we're in a setting from very young all the way up to the more seasoned individuals in the room. And so I'm going to try to present this in a way that it meets everybody in the middle. And just understand that I'm going to kind of try to not teach some people some things, but at the same time I want everybody to leave here with the information that they have, or that they need to have, should I say. So, I appreciate y'all being here. In fact, on the way down, I was like, 9/11, Tuesday night, there are going to be 8 people in that room. And I'm like, I hate it. And I walked in and I was like, holy cow, the one night I had something on my pants, the whole room. So I'm going to start wearing my pants with a stain more often, because apparently that works to get folks out here. So, we'll move right along. And I call this presentation Dumb Things on the Smartphone, because I've seen so many mistakes made by all the way up from adults all the way down to the very young kids. You can go sit in magistrate court where people have to go to bond hearing every day, and hear the stories of people that are fighting, older, more mature, who should know better people who are fighting because it starts off, well, he was on Facebook or she was on texting, and we're talking to adults. That ends up leading to one of them being arrested for some crime or another. So there's a lot of things. And I will tell you right now, when you hear the word, smartphone, phone just really kind of needs to be taken out of the equation. It is truly a smart device. It is a handheld computer. And kids, young adults, and when I say kids, we're talking about my daughter's age, 23 and 4 on down. That's not a phone. They don't use it as a phone. Call them on it and see if they answer. They don't. They'll text you right back and say, do you need something? I'm like, yeah, I'm deciding whether I'm going to pay your phone bill or not. You might want to call me. They just don't use it as a phone, and that's not what it is. It's a device that can access so many things. And here's what I want to start off with, just telling you. Think about all the different pieces of equipment that 20 years ago you would have to have sitting across this stage that are now available just in your phone. Your landline. A lot of people don't even have a home telephone. Most people don't anymore. An alarm clock, a television, a radio, a word processor. There are so many things that device does that really, truly make it a handheld multimedia device. And again, like I said, it's very rarely used for phone calls anymore. Y'all remember this thing? Yeah, some of you do. And what's funny, I'm going to say this just real quick because we don't have a lot of time, but y'all remember when we had this device, our pursuit in life was to try to get out of the kitchen with that device. Right? I mean, like you would even just walk around the corner just to say you were in the den, right? I'm not in the kitchen, I'm in the den. Then you got like the 30-foot cord. You can like actually go a little further. And then we got the cordless phone, right? And we would go to the mailbox to check the mail, and we'd call somebody. I'm at the street, man. They're like 50 feet away from the house. It sounds good, don't it? Clear. It's real clear, isn't it? Hello? Hello? Right? And we tried in such a long pursuit to get away from the wall. And now look where we're back. All these kids are plugged right back into the wall again. We've come full circle. And now we're basically chained to that wall again. And then we got the car phone. Y'all remember doctors and lawyers, really important people. Call them in the car. And then we went to what we called the bag phone. Some of you probably don't remember this little hot device right here. A little nugget of technology, right? And then we went to the actual cell phone. And what we did was over the years, we got smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And I remember like the StarTAC flip phone. It was like barely big, and you had to like talk like this because it wouldn't reach your mouth and your ear at the same time. But it was cool because it was tiny. And then we went from this to this, and the devices started getting bigger. And now you got folks that are holding laptops up to their head trying to talk. Hello, watching Netflix and talking on the phone, everything else. So my granddad, God bless him, the other day lost his phone. He's 91 years old. He works at the Sheriff's Department as a bailiff, puts the same uniform on that I do every day. He lost his phone. He's like, oh, wow, man, I lost it. It's probably at the Publix. I'm like, you'll find it there. And he's like, well, how do you know somebody's not going to steal it? I'm like, it's a flip phone, granddad. It will be in the same place you dropped it at, I promise. No kid would even pick that phone up. It ain't happening. He's like, it's gone, it's gone. 30 minutes later, Publix pharmacy guy, we got your phone, Mr. Thomas. I'm like, told you. He's like, I wanted to get me one of those phones like you got. I said, there is no way ever that that's happened. Not while I'm alive. You can't even add numbers to the flip phone, and you want to get one that requires a passcode, and I'm like, it ain't happening. Technology's changed so much. He's never opened or sent or read an email. And I realize 91 is on up there. But he lives in a whole different world than we do. And he calls me sometimes asking me to do things that I can't do. Because he thinks that phones can do all these great things, and sometimes there are limitations. There are some really good things that you can do with a phone. And of course, these also go in the category of concerning as well. Social media is great. I mean, the Sheriff's Department's got social media. I'm sure that the Board of Education's got social media. You want to get information out. In fact, we had a 3-year-old child that went missing on the way down. And as was said, I'm the PI of the department, so we're going to start pumping that information out. And we're going to do it by social media. This is the kid we're looking for. This is the area. You know, it's a good thing. Sending and receiving text messages and emails and browsing the internet, calendars and planners. You know, I mean, how many of us, if we lost our phone, we wouldn't know the next destination, right? Maps, all these different things, apps that we have and games, and just being able to take pictures and post them immediately for the world to see. And if there's a really bad situation, we could actually make a call if we had to. When it gets really bad, you're not going to be able to use your phone, so don't think that that's probably going to happen. But if there is a zombie apocalypse, we might actually have to use our phone to call those people. And again, how many of you even remember what people's numbers are? Right? I mean, you can barely remember numbers because you just hit a button and it's dialing that person, or you can just say, hey Siri, call so-and-so, and it's calling that person. So we don't even operate the way that we do. Now, when we talk about social media, there's 2 types for you parents that I want you to understand. Just like right now, I'm talking to you in a mass setting, that would be basically the first portion. When you're posting something on your social media for mass consumption. Okay, and that's one way that kids communicate with one another. We do it as adults as well. Pictures of whatever that you want to put on there for everybody to see. It's all good. You owe me $1. Direct messaging is the other way as well, which is one-on-one communication. So there's 2 types of communication that you can put out there. If I want to go home and talk about, I love to fish, if I want to talk about a fish that I caught or whatever, I put that out there for mass consumption. But if I want to talk to somebody about ordering a particular lure or rod or whatever, I don't do that in mass consumption. I do that direct message or one-on-one with that person. And I know that seems simple, but I want you to begin just to understand the world in which the kids live. So social media is generally the #1 way and reason why kids use their phone. I will tell you, and I know some of the kids will probably be upset, it's just the way that we work, but many kids have more than one account inside of each social media setting. So if you go in because you're that great parent and you say, my God, I want to see your Snapchat account. They're like, okay. And they give you that spam or that one account that is the church-going holy water feeding people at the local mission account. And then they have their other account. Don't think they don't. All right, so just understand it. And it's just common practice. There's an account, and then they have what they call a spam account. There's 2 accounts. And oftentimes kids can have many accounts inside. Date one person, break up or whatever, you get the new one because it's much easier trying to delete all the stuff off the old one. So there can be multiple accounts inside of each social media option. And it's just a quick tool for kids to be able to use and talk and communicate every day. And of course, if you're like any other county, Board of Education or school system, stolen phones are probably your #1 crime that takes place on a regular basis because kids know that they can use them regardless of service. And if you just lay one down for a half a second and turn your back, it'll be gone. And that's true for any, Beats or headsets or phones or iPods or whatever else. So, again, some other information. Now, I will tell you, and the young lady who got up and talked about all the great things that there are. That's great, and it sounds great, but I will tell you, kids are in constant pursuit to beat that. Do not think that that is the end-all, be-all, fail-safe, the school's got my kids back. Because your kids will find a way around it. I have never met a kid that's not smarter than the greatest IT person. I mean, they are in a constant pursuit to beat things. And the fact that y'all block proxy servers is a great step in the right direction. And so there's a lot of great things. So y'all are way, way, way ahead of the game. But as parents, don't get comfortable. The only way that you know what your kids are doing is that constant line of communication and talking with them about what they're seeing or what they're doing online. It's hugely important. So, but y'all have some, I'm telling you, y'all have some really great things going on. The lure of social media, though, is that, and I'm not going to get into this too much, but as kids, young kids, when we were growing up, we had these categories that we all fit in. You were the prep, the nerd, the jock, the druggie, this, that. We all had all these different categories. Now your kids know, or at least they think, they know their numerical importance based on those numbers. It makes perfect sense. If Franklin and I have a social media page, and we're both deputies, and we're both putting ourselves out there, and Franklin gets 3,000 likes on his post that he puts out there, and I get 2,000, it's easy to see that he's more important than I am. He's got more followers. He's doing greater things. And kids, even when it's 100 versus 150, kids know the numerical value of what they hold. And I'm going to tell you this as a parent, because I teach parent classes all the time as well. Parents, tell your kids how awesome they are. Tell your kids, especially your daughters, how beautiful they are. Tell them your expectations. Tell them what you want them to know and not know, because if you don't tell them that, somebody will. So it's important to know that just because so-and-so got 4,582 likes, here's the big part. What is she wearing, or what is he wearing that got those 4,582 likes? Because if I wear what she's wearing, maybe I'll get more likes. And it is a deception from the very beginning, the whole concept of social media. Kids want to accept friend requests from people they don't know because they think it ups their credibility or ups their value. A lot of times there's little to no positive guidance. We give a kid a phone and we go, here you go. Merry Christmas, happy birthday, whatever it is, here's your phone, enjoy it, but we don't ever sit down and talk to them. Why is it that in this society we tell kids, don't go to Walmart and talk to strangers, but yet we let them talk to strangers all day long in the comfort of their own home? I'd rather know the strangers up close and personal. I can see them in the Walmart. You can't see them in their bedroom. And what you're going to find out in just a few minutes is that online gaming is a horrible place for kids to be without parental guidance. Bullying, racism, sexual predatory stuff, everything right now is focused in online gaming. And we don't think about that when we buy our kids a video game and say, here you go. Direct messaging is the other way. We're not going to get into this too much. But just understand that a lot of games, as you'll see this right here, a lot of games include hidden messaging features. So just because you're looking at your kids' text messaging or messaging features doesn't mean that they're not communicating through some other form. Every single app out there now is being built with some fashion or way to directly communicate with somebody else using that particular app. And there's hundreds of apps that can be downloaded that can be used to communicate. Hundreds of apps that can be used that can communicate. There are apps that spoof or hide numbers. So just because you see something doesn't mean that that's actually the number that called. Deputy Smith and these other law enforcement officers will tell you, you can see on your phone, on caller ID, you're getting a number from FBI Atlanta. And you pick it up and you say hello, and they tell you you got a warrant because you didn't show up for so-and-so, and if you'll send $500 in the form of a credit card payment, they'll reduce that warrant to a warning, and blah, blah, blah. And you're like, oh, it's the FBI Atlanta. I see the number on my phone. It's not. You have no guarantee, even if it's somebody that you know. If I know that number as well, I can call and make you think your mama's calling, or your daddy's calling, or your friend's calling, or whoever, and it's going to show up that way. So just understand that there's all kinds of tricky features out there that can be used. And there's apps, obviously, delete messages and pictures. We'll talk about those in just a few minutes. And of course, this is the second most common reason why kids use their phones. We all know actual phone calls are very limited. Kids just don't use that very well. And I'll tell you something that's pretty interesting. Watch the movie WALL-E, the Disney movie WALL-E. About the little computer, the little robot that runs around. Everybody's riding around. Watch that movie. It's scary. It's very scary. That's homework. You didn't know you were going to get that, but you do. You have homework. It's a school function. Kids know we're wild. Let me tell you this, it's kind of funny. As you can probably tell, I go to Chick-fil-A to eat. I go anywhere there's food, I go there to eat. Kids go to use the Wi-Fi and they might be. Kids know where it's at, and if they can steal or get their hands on the phone, they can use that phone just like any other device because they can access Wi-Fi. And you can take your kid's phone away from them, and they've got another one in backup. Don't think they don't. They'll get another one. They'll find another one. It will happen. And you've got to be constantly on them. Again, we talked about the theft of cell phones and jailbreaking. Basically what we call unlocking a phone's digital rights so that it can be used. And I will tell you that even the best parental controls can be defeated and bypassed. And kids are constantly teaching one another. In fact, I'm going to tell you a story just the other day of a young lady who her dad had a feature on his phone that told him where she was at, right? And so he looked on his phone and saw that she was at home. Everything's good, right? She's crashed in a pond. And luckily someone found her before she died. She crashed into a pond and almost drowned several miles down the road and had downloaded a feature that she could tell the phone to tell the app where she was at. And so here imagine a parent thinking, my kid's at home. And then getting a phone call that we just found her almost drowned to death in a pond several miles down the road. Don't let technology replace what I call good parenting. It's just something that you've got to be able to do. Like I told you, kids give other kids phones. Kids will allow other people to log into their accounts on their phones. And they can still access that throughout the course of the day. And for you teachers that are in the room, I guarantee you can't do the old school thing of, okay, I talked to little so-and-so, now you go and you get so-and-so and you tell them to come to the principal's office. The kids have their own code red. As soon as you walk out the door, they'll be like, look, they're looking for pictures. Y'all start deleting everything off your phone. Spread the word. And before the assistant principal even knows investigation started, definitely before the SRO knows that investigation started, they've done deleted everything you possibly think about getting. So just understand, you've got to be thoughtful about what you're doing. And I've often learned that as a parent, the best time to check your kid's phone is when they're really intent at something and then they laugh. Trust me. That's when you want to grab a phone. Kids, I'm sorry, I'm just telling you how it works. Alright. Online gaming we've already talked about. I did not realize this, that there was a huge, like a following of these people that play online gaming. I didn't know that there were sponsors that is worth millions of dollars to these people. So important that a kid will pull a gun out and shoot somebody else over a video game. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you're missing the finer details of what's going on in our culture. Online gaming is huge. You can go to YouTube and look at the video gaming stuff of what's going on and how they're doing it, who's playing, and what's the best player for whatever, the newest, coolest game, Fortnite or whatever it is. There's a lure to want to be the next greatest person. A lot of these games have various apps. Like you can have Fortnite on your cell phone, on your console, and on your PlayStation. And I have accompanying apps that go along with them that can allow you to message people inside of those games. And here's how simple it is. And I've worked a couple of these cases just in the last few months of those young people that are using those gaming systems. And someone, says, hey, I'd love to be your friend, I see you on all the time or whatever. And they begin talking and they say, hey, let me give you my screen name. Let me give you my text. Text me. And then the next thing you know, it's, hey, can I send you a new gaming station? I got one. I won one. Can I send you one? I worked a case just a few weeks ago of a 12-year-old boy who had a 21-year-old man that was going to come down and pick him up and drive him back out of state to where they were at. And the young man had no idea. When you're in that world of online gaming, you're constantly feeding people information and you've got to be very careful. I like it. It's cool. It's something that's interesting. but you can hear and see so much on the online gaming platforms. I'm going to tell you kids in this room, listen, if you're a kid, look at me, quit messing around. I'm telling you, if you're a young person, look at me right now. There's probably someone on your social media page who you think they're one person and there's someone completely different. How do I know that? Because I have undercover accounts. We operate I worked whole entire game cases posing to be someone else online that I wasn't. Don't think that there's not a predator out there searching for that one child who doesn't have the information they need to keep themselves safe. They're posting pictures of a 12-year-old boy to let you be convinced that's who they are. And they're not. And they're not who they say they are. And they're extremely dangerous. Strangers are always out there. I'm going to tell you kids, don't ever believe that you always know who you're talking to. Because that's not the case. These predators work their way in slowly over months time frame. They're not just going to pop out and ask for something absolutely crazy or ridiculous. They're going to constantly be trying to what we call groom and lure these kids into making a mistake. And the next thing you know, they're there at your doorstep or there's a problem that goes along with it. So those were the good things. Right? Now you know what was said about going home and getting your kid's phone, right? So let's talk about some of the bad things. We're not going to talk about all these in detail, but I do want to go along with them. And this is just a few. Sexting, texting, and driving. We all know that that law's changed. Displaying bullying or gang behavior, violence or learning violent behavior. There's actually a game now, and I'm not going to mention it by name. There's actually a game now that's sweeping the world that encourages kids to commit self-harm and or suicide. The game itself is telling them they have to do it. And we've heard all the stories of the Slender Man and this and that and all the stuff that goes around. You don't want to be that parent that has to deal with that. Racist and violent music or music videos, threats that are being posted, teaching, learning, and promoting bullying or gang-related behavior, drug availability and use. I had a guy actually post his status update, I got weed. Hit me up. Here's my cell phone. You hit him up. I mean, I can't help it. Dumb. That's dumb things with a smartphone, right? So texting and sexting, we'll talk about texting and driving. Let's just be real honest about this, the way it works in Georgia now. You can't touch your phone once you leave wherever you're going until you stop. That means red lights and stop signs, and that means anything else. You cannot have it, you cannot touch it or manipulate it in any way, shape, or form. Parents, lead by example. Do not ask your kids to do something that you're not doing. It's tough. It's tough. But somewhere in the area of 11 teens die every day in this country to driving and using their phone and crashing and dying. 23 times more likely to have an accident if you're using your phone and driving. It is just that's what worries me to death about my 18-year-old. I'm constantly testing her. Ronald Reagan, trust but verify. I trust you. I'm just coming to check to make sure. Alright, you'll see me put some of these stats up here. The most important one there, 23 times more likely to have an accident. That was the big one that I wanted you to see. 25% of all vehicle accidents involve a cell phone. 2 million wrecks a year. That's adults and teens. The average text takes your attention away from the road for 120 yards. And it kills 11 teens per day. Don't do it. Put it up. Don't expect your child to drive like this. And let me tell you, I know how it works, right? Well, I don't want the cops to see me using my phone. Georgia, if you hit and kill someone while texting and driving, the sentence is prison. No questions asked, you're going to prison. 17 years old to 70, you're going to prison. And it's happened. Be thoughtful. Of course, sexting is the sending or posting of explicit material, what we would call nude or semi-nude images over the internet or a cell phone, but it includes more than just images. In the state of Georgia, it is illegal to have explicit conversation with anyone under the age of 18. This is something that can get you in trouble in a hurry. Now, I know that we live in a different age, but I talk to a lot of young men as well in my teachings and trainings, and I tell them, check IDs. How many of y'all said that? You better check IDs. The girl looked like she's 21 and she's 15. Boys are the same way. You better check IDs. You better be careful. As a general rule, if you or the person that you're sending images to is under the age of 18 and those images are what we call sexually explicit, it's illegal. Georgia does have a marital exception. If you're married and under the age of 18, you can send explicit materials to the person that you're married to. So if you're not married and you're under the age of 18, which is probably everybody who's under the age of 18 in this room, and you send or receive any explicit material, a law has been violated by you and or the person who sent it, or both. Some crimes are misdemeanors and others could be considered felonies. Georgia used to have the Romeo and Juliet law. Now we have the 14 to 18 law. And what it says is that we don't want to ruin kids' lives and charge them with a bunch of felonies at 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 years old. So if two children, minors is the word we use, between the ages of 14 and 18, consensually share an explicit picture, it is a misdemeanor violation of the law. If at any given time one of those two shares that picture without consent, it is a felony. And every time they share it and every person it goes to is another felony. So if I send a picture that I have to Mr. Brinson and then he shares it 37 times, that means I catch every one of those felonies, and then he's going to catch every one of those felonies, and everybody's going to catch one of those felonies. So just understand, you don't need, if you're under the age of 18, to be sending or receiving any inappropriate pictures. Parents, tell your kids that, and tell them it more than one time. Tell them what appropriate is and what inappropriate is. Because sometimes inappropriate may not be illegal. But make sure that you talk to your kids about what the expectations are. Because they see it online, they see people doing it online, and they think that it's okay unless they've been told differently. There are several laws that are there. I'm not going to talk about each one of them. But these are the different laws that can be violated with just one text message, one picture, one request, one comment to a person under the age of 18. It's very serious. So, when we talk about, and my batteries may be going dead, we may have to get another clicker, or I may have to get closer. So, sexting is more common than you might think. There are cases that are very complex. You law enforcement officers know how that works, right? I would rather, and I don't do this in any way bad, don't take me wrong, but I would rather work a murder than I would a sexting case. Because you end up having 30 to 40 people involved in search warrants and digital media and seizing phones and this person and this parent and everything going on, and it absolutely is miserable. Tell your kids what the expectations are, because they don't want to be wrapped up in this. Listen to what I'm telling you. I actually had a football player that asked another young man to hold pictures of his girlfriend. So he texted him those pictures to hold, which back in the day when we were saying hold something, it was drugs. That's what you were telling him whenever holding something. These are pictures. Hold my digital images because my new girlfriend's going to go through my phone and I don't want to get caught. The little boy on the receiving end says, okay, I'll do that for you. Okay, he kind of freaks out, panics. So he says, look, I'm going to send these pictures back to you. I don't want them on my phone. I want to get rid of them. And so he types in the iPhone the number of the young man on the football team and pulls up that last group message, which included 2 coaches and about 8 other players, and he sent those images to about 8 or 10 people. That causes folks to panic. And of course, we were proud of the fact that those 2 coaches immediately were like, hey, hold on, there's something wrong. Come into your office. I got to report this. We have a problem. But you know, all it would take is one of those coaches going, oops, this is not for me, and delete it. And when I find out about the case and he didn't report it to me, he's going to prison. I'm going to tell you kids and you parents, the only way you can absolve yourself of receiving what we call an inappropriate picture of an underage person is to report it, period. Because if you delete it, I have a little machine on the 3rd floor of my office I can plug right in called the Cellbrite. We'll find every picture on your phone, including all the ones that you deleted. I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit, but I just want you to understand that the only way that you can absolve yourself is to report that. So kids, when you get your phone, for those of you who are lucky enough, or maybe you already have, you better go to your friend and say, this is what I'm telling you, you better tell them this. Don't send nothing to me, it's going to make me snitch on you. Because I'll snitch on you in a minute when it comes to going to jail. I'll tell my mama for selling Tylenol. I'm not going to jail for nobody. So you better tell your friends, do not send me anything that will get me in trouble and make me tell on you. Because contrary to popular belief, everybody snitches. I've seen grown men, 45 years old, break down and cry and tell them everybody they know. Very few people are tough enough to take a ride. So don't do it and don't be wrapped up in it. Very young age kids can be involved in it. I'll tell you law enforcement, which you should know. I'm not telling you that you don't, but I'll tell you teachers. Make sure that you're not screen capturing stuff and giving them their phone back because you want to make sure that that's bad news. The very second that you know you have a phone that has what we would call child pornography on it, you're required by law to report that. You're a mandated reporter. And number 2, if you go, oops, I didn't really need to see this, and you hand it back to that child, even if it's pictures of them, you've distributed obscene materials to a minor. You've got to take that phone and you've got to go, Mr. Brinson, here you go. Don't want nothing to do with this. This is on you. Earn your paycheck. Happy hunting. All right, it can happen. And please don't do like a football coach and attach an image to an email and say, I just got this, and send the email to the principal. Because now every server and every computer and everything that touched is now tainted and can be seized and should be seized. And a forensic cleanup on a computer system and a server can go into the hundreds of thousands of dollars. Take the device, turn it over, and be done with it. Mainstream media tells kids that it's okay, and it's not. The consequences of that can include quite a good bit. I tell the story quite often. My daughter, and my 18-year-old right now, she has about 8 different school colleges trying to recruit her for soccer. Maya, her LSU scholarship was worth $250,000. She didn't pay for anything in school. One of the very first things they ask young men and young women on a scholarship application, what are your social media pages? What's your YouTube page? What is your Twitter page? What is your Snapchat? What do you use and what do you utilize because they want to look? If you go to work at the Sheriff's Department, you can ask Deputy Smith, we say, what are your pages and what are your passwords? Because we're going to access your account and look at your account from the inside out. You better be very careful, young folks, now about what you post, because 20 years from now, it can come back and bite you. Ask the politicians. Ask the actors who made comments 20 years ago, and now it's coming back out. You've got to be very, very, very careful. Punishment from school, suspension from extracurricular activities, humiliation from friends and strangers, criminal prosecution. Parents, let me do this for you. Kids, listen up. If you wouldn't walk down the hallway of your school wearing whatever it is that you're fixing to post, don't post it. That's how simple it is. If you wouldn't walk down the hall with what you got on in this post, you shouldn't post it. If you wouldn't want your grandmama or your pastor to see it, you shouldn't post it. Once you send a picture, you can never get it back. Of course, this is the worst one. If you have material on your phone is subject to be destroyed with a hammer, broken to pieces. It's done. Don't do it. Never take a picture of yourself that you wouldn't want the world to see. Once you send an image, you cannot get it back ever. If you forward an image, you're responsible for it as the original sender. I keep a picture just for this very reason in my gear of my 18-year-old. If I have a picture here, this is Kirsten. Right? Okay. I know who saw that picture. Did you see it? Nope. Did you see it? Nope. I know none of you saw it. But when I send that digital picture, you can guarantee everybody in this room is going to see it. Once you send a picture, you can never, ever, ever guarantee that you know where it's going or who's seen it. If you possess an image, you're responsible for it. If you forward an image, you can be responsible for it. Obviously, you should report it and don't delete it because it's still on your phone. And in worst case scenarios, I don't know if y'all are seeing this down here, but we're having cases of what we call sextortion, where young men or young women are looking for pictures of other young men and young women in the school system. And it could be the next county over, the next city over, and they're telling them, they'll email them and say, look, I have this picture. And now you're going to send or do whatever I ask you to do. And if you don't, I'm going to email it to your mom or your dad or your soccer coach or your pastor or your principal. Especially you young, I have 4 girls. Young ladies, listen to me. Respect yourself because the boys are not going to. And I'll tell you that I love you and want you to do the right things. You do not need someone else to tell you how important or valuable you are. Because you are. Young man, you don't need to be involved in that. But the world's going to tell you, young man, that if you want to be cool, you got to have those pictures on your phone. Don't do it. Don't fall into that world that can get you in so much trouble in a hurry. Nicole Cable was a young lady. I would ask you to go home and do research. Tell me where my time's at, y'all. Don't let me know. Where am I at? Okay. Okay, so how much time do I have? 15 minutes left? Okay. I'm going to keep talking. Y'all can leave and miss the important stuff if you want to. I'm good at guilt, right? All the good parents are staying. Oh, Lord, I got fun with this. All right, so anyway, look, they're too big to leave. It's all right, we still love you. Oh, that's enough. Okay, we still love you. All right. Nicole Cable was a young lady who accepted a friend request from who she thought was a friend. The thing she didn't know is it was a secret admirer who she wouldn't give him the time of day any other way. And the story, I'm going to make it very short for you. She agreed to meet who she thought was her friend. And she did. And this young man's plan was to kidnap her and take her to a house out in the middle of nowhere and tie her up and leave her in this home. And then he was going to come back with the police days later and find her, be her hero, and then how the story goes, she would fall in love with him because that's her hero. He did kidnap her, and during the fight, she struggled, and he duct taped her mouth and her nose. And on the way to the home, she suffocated and died, and he left her body in the woods at the house. It's not an opportunity to scare you or to tell you a story to get you not to do or to do anything. Go to Google and type in Nicole Cable and click on the news tab and see the number of articles that they covered her case where they ended up convicting that young man of murder and he went to prison. Never, ever, ever meet anyone, ever, anywhere that you just talked to over like the computer or text message. I know young men and women that have boyfriends and girlfriends they've never even met. Don't play that game, because you never know who it is that you're talking to. And I bet if Nicole Cady would speak from the grave, she would tell you that it is a dangerous place and you need to be careful. There's all kinds of apps out there that are used to hide, and we're not going to talk about these to any great degree, but just understand as a parent, there are apps out there that are available to hide things. You've got to be smart enough to know what's being downloaded. You've got to be smart enough to click on every app and see what that app does. You should Google apps that your kids download. You should be an expert in digital citizenship and digital media, knowing what kids do, because it's very important. And a lot of times kids may fall into a trap that they have no idea what it actually is. They're very common. A lot of times they're very hard to find. And if you're not seeing text and emails as a parent, there's probably a reason why. I know on my daughter's phone, I can look at her email account. She's got like 4,873 emails. She just never, they have to have that email account to open up, that Gmail, and then they can start getting those emails, and the next thing you know, they're just overwhelmed. But there's so many different features: text messaging, iMessaging, this app, that app, this game, that. I mean, there's so many ways to communicate. And I'm going to tell you this as a parent. The only way to know that your kid's not on their phone past a certain time is to have that phone by your bed where you know where it's at. And that doesn't mean that they're not going to use whatever app or game or laptop to log in and try to beat you at that game. You have to play the old, like what we call the law enforcement. Get on the wall, right? Pat them down, check them, check their bed, check underneath their bed. Love them, but check. Because there's a lot of opportunities that are out there. We're not going to talk a lot about these, but I'm going to tell you real quickly that there are apps out there that can be used, and we're actually going to use, I think in a little bit, we're going to use one of the augmented reality QR app opportunities. Some of these are, I wouldn't say outdated, but some of them are not quite as common as they used to be. Good? Good? 3, 2, 1. All right. 3, 2, 1, if I can get my clicker. All right, so augmented reality is kind of a concern. Augmented reality is kind of like that Pokemon Go, or where you're actually using your phone to look at reality. And I could, if I wanted to, see what a long blonde wig would look like. I could take a picture and ask it to do. And y'all ladies know you can go, now they have them where you can actually go using your camera to the different makeup sites, and you can actually click and it will apply that makeup in that color, or that hair color, or all these different things. You can actually see what tattoos look like. They have augmented reality anatomy apps where I can actually look at someone and tell where their heart and their liver and lungs and all that. There's so many neat things that are out there, but the scary thing is there's other opportunities as well, which a lot of people don't know about. And this, I'm not going to tell you what this app is, but this is an interesting app that is labeled a QR reader. That's what it's designed for. But if you go into its features, it actually has what they call geo layers. And under those geo layers, you see that it will drop down and it will give you options. All right, so this is my screen. I actually did a screen capture of my screen, and I go into these geo layers, and these options pull down. And then I can go into Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. There's all these different social media sites that I can check. And I can go into Instagram, and then it will pull up right here. It will actually pull up within, I think the shortest distance is 0.3 miles, and the longest distance is like 12 miles. And you'll see a little radar pop up in the corner, and I can actually scan around, and it will tell me, it'll pop up on the screen, little pictures like this, right? So you're actually looking, I'm doing just a basic search, and I see this young lady has posted on Instagram. She says, I'm going to need about 5 of these, and I can see it's a Starbucks. I can see her name, the date, and the time. Wow, here's the scary part. I can ask it to drive me to where she posted that picture from. So if that's her house, it drives me to her house. If that's the school, it drives me to her school. And in this particular case, she was posting at the Starbucks coffee, exactly where she said she was at. Now parents freak out and they say, well, how do I know that my child's not doing that or making a mistake or whatever? You literally have got to have your kid's device, which I'm going to tell you right now, an iPod is no different than an iPhone. They do all the same things. You can FaceTime, you can do all in fact, it's dangerous because a lot of times kids, let's give you the kiddie version, the iPod. And the iPod does all the exact same things. But you have to go in every feature and make sure that feature is not sharing public information for the world to see. Y'all know Snapchat has SnapMap. Was a big thing that came out for the longest time. And it would let everybody on your SnapMap know where you were at 24/7. Now if you're friends with 3 people that you know and you trust, that's fine. But when you're Snapchat friends with 3,000 people because you've accepted every friend request you possibly can, then you're letting 3,000 perfect strangers know exactly where you're at all the time. And these things are so accurate that they can get within just a matter of inches from where you're standing. So it's real scary. There's all kinds of different apps. So I will say this. Privacy is a valuable tool, a valuable commodity, a valuable thing. Make sure that you're not posting things out there for the world to see. If you're going to vacation, how about posting your pictures when you get back? Don't post them while you're gone, so that when you get back, there's another family of Smiths living in your house. You're all of a sudden come back to that alternate reality of why are there people living in your house? Because you posted for. Don't get your little driver's license picture from your 15-year-old and let them post a picture smiling where I can zoom in and see what your address and the driver's license, the date of birth, and everything else is. And one picture of your grandson is enough. I don't have to see 1,000 of them either. That's just a personal preference. I don't care what they eat for breakfast or lunch. Right? Y'all know what it's like. Y'all know what a parent, right? Those young parents, you see their Snapchat, the day they have the kid, right? It becomes the kid's Snapchat, right? Be careful about what you post. I'm going to tell you I'll tell you this too. I'll tell you this. This is for free. I say this all the time, and I'm not here to talk religion, but I can promise you this. Jesus is not going to love you anymore if you forward an email to 20 of your favorite friends. Ain't going to happen. If Jesus don't love you, he's not going to love you anymore. If he loves you, I know he loves you, it's all good. It doesn't matter who you send it to. Mark Zuckerberg is not going to bring you a Walmart gift certificate for $250 ever. There are not alligators in the sewers of New York City. Now look, while I was there, I didn't see them. But you'd be surprised how many times that us in law enforcement or at the school forward something that looks really heartbreaking, and when they see that .edu or that .gov, it becomes fact. So be very careful about what you open and what you look at. Viruses are a dime a dozen. If they can break into Equifax, they can break into anywhere. Anthem, Blue Cross Blue Shield, y'all know that one, right? Don't put your information out there. Don't open emails. Don't follow links. Make sure that you check what you're doing. Be careful about downloading games and files and music that you haven't had the opportunity to make sure is clean. Don't post or share personal information. We did some studies. It takes the average person about 18 minutes to find out enough to be able to find your child. The stuff you're posting publicly on forums. I'm not even going to show you that because we don't have time. There's an interesting PowerPoint that I can show you where it takes about 18 minutes. Credit cards, social security numbers. Young kids, I'm going to tell you this. It's not a show of sign of love or trust or whatever, friendship or whatever it is to share your passwords with anybody other than your parents. Parents, you should know all your kids' passwords. And if you want to give them me afterwards, I'll tell you what my daddy would do if I wouldn't share a password. Thank God we didn't have phones back. I would have been in so much trouble. I mean, imagine, think about it. Now, we like to sit as adults and we like to point fingers. What would you have done at 15 years old, as a young man or young woman? When someone said, would you want to see this picture? We would probably said, yeah. Think about what you would have done with the mind of a 14-year-old that's trying to understand and grasp life. It's something that can be very dangerous. So kids, don't share your passwords. Be careful about logging out of things when you're done to make sure people don't get your passwords. Kids, never meet anybody face to face, ever, who you only know online. Parents rarely do, but should monitor and talk to their kids about what they're doing online. There's a thing in your kitchen, square, usually has 4 legs on it. Most of the time there's chairs around it. We call it a table. Not a drive-through. Not in front of the TV. Sit down at that square thing and look at your kid across the table and ask them, how did you do today? What did you do today? One of the greatest comics I've ever seen was a little kid who's talking to a friend of his, and he said, the power went out and my phone died, and I met my parents, and they're actually pretty cool people. Parents, you ever text your kids from the other room, bring me so-and-so? Yeah? I've been there. I text last night, come here. Hey, where is here? I'm like, come here! I did old school law. Right? But what was your dad saying? I could have done that, right? I could yell. I said, in the den. Bring me your phone. Don't text for 10 minutes at least until I say it's safe. And if I told you that kids said POS, if profanity is the first thing that came to your mind, you're not where you need to be. Parent over shoulder. So it can be an interesting game. Cyberbullying is a really huge deal. Kids can't get it. How wrong were we parents when we said sticks and stones will break our bones, but words will never hurt? We were huge wrong with that one. We messed that one up really bad. Words are a lot more horrible than it is just to go ahead and fight and get it over with in most cases. Not that we're promoting fighting, I'm saying that in general, words hurt. And they can be very damaging to kids that can never get away from it. Kids, don't do it. Be a part of the class of people that don't harass or intimidate or bully people online. Don't pass along a bullying message. Tell friends to not do it. Again, when you get your phone, tell them, don't bully. Don't send me things that are bullying. Block communications with people. Report it to a trusted adult. And I will say this, adults, please take anything your kids say seriously. Stop and talk to them. How many times do we catch ourselves going, Yeah, the things we do to kids nowadays, the ways that we show them we're not interested, is sometimes very hurtful. Be very thoughtful about what we can do. Do you have an anti-bullying campaign in school system? Okay, that's good. Sounds like a lot of great things. Alright, so we're going to kind of go through this really quickly. 30% of child self-harm is related to bullying. Listen, I'm going to say it again. He He's tired. He's been there long enough. All right, listen again. 30% of self-harm comes directly back to bullying. 65% of weapons and violence in the school come directly back to bullying. Active shooters, all the way down to just bringing knives to school, directly come back to bullying. It's something that we've got to take seriously. Kids are hurting themselves because they see bullying. Encourages gang membership, drug use, hate groups, dangerous youth behavior. Encourages kids dropping out of school. 10% of kids who drop out from school say the main reason they did it was bullying. School attendance, PTSD, anxiety, depression, stress, eating disorders. There's so much that's out there that kids have to deal with. This is interesting. Kids who bully, listen to this, increases the risk of arrest and criminal behavior later in life. 60% of bullies will have one arrest by the time that they're 20, and 40% of those 60 will have 3 arrests by the time they're 20. Don't let your kids bully. Don't let your kids be a part of bullying or be a victim of bullying. I want to show you this, and we're going to end it. How much time we got? We're about where we need to be? All right. You ever have one of those moments when you're riding down the road and you really feel like it's somebody that's higher than you, a greater power, has just kind of laid something on you? And I believe that in this case. 20 years ago, if I'd have been up here with a Polaroid or a 35mm camera doing a duck face and taking pictures of myself, you'd have said that I need help. Right? Imagine what that would look like. If you'd have gone to the little shoebox with Polaroids in and looked, there were about 35 pictures of people, of it was just their face making different faces, you'd be like, this person needs help. Shoebox full of pictures of themselves. What's wrong with them? But now look where we're at, right? Y'all know that word. Let me show it to you real quick. And I'm like, this is so cool. Because I just don't have that much time. Selfie, right? Selfie. A social and an emotional love for increased exposure. A selfie. Oh, I catch a fish, now I'm catching a fish and taking a picture of myself. Everybody, my grandma was 89. She probably posted a selfie somewhere, I'm sure. Right? We all know, you go to an Atlanta United football, what we call football. For those of you who are confused with that, I'm sorry. Soccer game, football. And look around at all the number of people that are not even interested in watching the game. They're just too busy taking pictures of themselves at the game that they didn't watch. Take your kid's camera. They go, oh my God, what are we going to do when the power runs out? Oh my God, I don't know. But you won't die. And if you do, all right, I'll come back camping later. I'm not going to kill you. Unplug from the wall. Don't let it be your babysitter. You know, there's actually sites that will tell you how much digital consumption your child should be getting based on their age. And up until 1 year old, it's pretty much like 0. Do you know the effects of video games played constantly over the weekend chemically imbalance your child's brain? And it takes 3 days for your child to balance back out chemically to normal? Teachers, does that sound about right? Come Wednesday? Woo! We got them under control. Hallelujah. Friday, we're going to send them home, and then Monday, we know what it's going to be like. It increases the creativity, the positive creativity side of your brain to the point that you become mischievous and out of control. It suppresses the logical side of your brain to where you can't think and make logical decisions about behavior. Do some research on that. 3 days. 3 days it takes for your brain to detox from digital media. 3 days, that's crazy. More powerful than drugs. And you wonder why your kids act addicted. Parents, is the last thing you put down at night your phone? Is it the first thing you pick up in the morning? Think about it. Think about it. So, I will be down front for a few minutes afterward to answer any questions, thoughts. I probably scared you to death. I can't help that. I want you to be involved as a parent. I want you to help me be a better parent. I hope it helps you be a better parent. Are you going to? All yours.
Sergeant Hambrick has given us such a wealth of knowledge and information to think about. Thank you so much for coming to our district and speaking to our parents this evening. We'd like to give you the opportunity to give you some feedback. This is not augmented reality. This is a link to a survey, online survey, for you to give your information about did you like our session and would you like to request future sessions, topics of interest we would like to know. We are so grateful for you turning out today in such numbers. Thank you so much, and we look forward to bringing you interesting content